Hi, I'm David Newcomb. My wife Roseanne and I started the Livingston Mission Center back in 2006. And Livingston is a training ministry that trains young men and women from all over Southern Africa to go out into the most inaccessible rural villages, take the gospel, and also to plant churches and to become the community center in those villages. In 2017, we had a class. We run 2 classes a year. And they're 1-month-long classes. We only take 7 because it's very much a discipling, mentoring, that they come out in the villages with me and learn how to approach a village, how to evangelize a village, how to plant churches, and how to recognize the needs of the village. So Mundi went down and with a group, and the Lord had prompted her to go to the Woman of the Night. There's a lot of prostitution in Kazangula because it's a border town. And so she went down to the local House of El Recruit, and outside were a number of ladies of the night and women of the night. There would maybe, I think she said there were 8 or 9 of them. And she started to share the gospel, and they listened for a while, and then they started to sort of leave. But 2 remained and went right through the gospel. And so Wendy said to them, "Do you want to come to church tomorrow and hear more?" And so they both said, "Yeah, we'd love to do that." And so the next, or that evening, that was a Saturday, Wendy came to me and said, these 2 ladies would like to come to church tomorrow at Pastor Gabriel's church. I said, "Okay, that's fantastic." And of course, I'm pretty well known in Kazangula. It's not a huge town, and the ministry is known pretty well there. We've got a lot of graduates have obviously come up to Kazangula. And so it was kind of embarrassing, but I was slipped down in the seat so nobody could see me. And Frida went inside. And when she went inside, she found that only Wendy, one of the ladies, was prepared to go to church. The other lady said she wasn't going to go. So we took Wendy to church. Long story short, she got radically saved after an afternoon of deliverance with the pastor, Pastor Gabriel, and with others, some of the elders of the church. She was set free, on fire, just passionate for Jesus. It was just a miracle right there. And Frida came to me and said, "We can't send her back because that's where she lives." So I said, "Okay, well, let's bring her up to the base camp." And so she actually ended up going through some of the course with us at the base camp, which was kind of interesting. It was like a really new believer going through the course. And the story behind her backstory was that she had run a fish business in Choma, which is the provincial capital. It's a large town, probably 350, 400,000 people. And she had run a fish business there with her husband. Her husband had left, taken all the money, and left her with, I believe it was 6 dependents or 7 dependents, including a sister and children. And so they tried to make ends meet. They couldn't. She eventually had traveled the 3.5 hours to Kazangula and become a prostitute, so that she sent all her money back to her dependents. And that had happened 2 years previous. So she hadn't seen her children for 2 years, and only communication she had was by phone or when sending money. So anyway, so we decided that we were going to take her back to Choma to reunite her with her children. Long story short, we're traveling up to Choma with Wendy and a couple of the elders from Kazangula, and we get there, and we meet outside the town. We meet the pastor's wife, who's going to show us in to where she lives, and then where she lives, and then they're going to talk and find out more about Wendy, where she lived, and everything else. And so on we went in there, and as we traveled into this neighborhood, and I remember this is a big town, there's this one neighborhood. As we traveled in there to the pastor's home, Wendy says, "This is where I live. I live in this area." And so we said, "Wow, okay." And so we went to the pastor's home. So the pastor's wife and her daughter and another young lady from the youth group were there. And the pastor's wife, as Wendy was telling her story, the pastor's wife kept looking at her and said, "I've seen you around. I know you from somewhere. What's your full name?" And she gave her full name. And the 2 young ladies, her daughter and this other young lady, jumped up and said, "Your twin daughters are leaders in our youth group." Now, when Wendy had gone away, They had never gone to church. None of the family had gone to church. But in the 2 years while she was away, her daughters had got saved and were leaders in the youth group. And so she got home. We took her to her home to be reunited with her daughters and the rest of her dependents. And from her home, where she stayed, her home is an expression of largesse. It's actually a place that was probably 20 by 10, and there's 8 people lived in there. But anyway, so from their home, you could actually see the very church, this covenant church, where this pastor was from. And so it was just a complete miracle of God. And that she was restored. She's now a deacon in the church. I spoke to her just the other day. And we had given her some seed capital to start a fish business again. It's prospering, and she gives all the glory to God.